Jim Shooter, who was the Marvel editor-in-chief from 1978 to 1987, passed away on June 30th. He wrote a number of comics published by Marvel, including the original Secret Wars series, and by a number of other companies. 2 years ago, Koom interviewed Shooter to find out what he thought about Marvel in its current incarnation, get his recollections of Frank Miller and Ann Nocenti's respective starts in the comics industry, hear his theory that the nursery rhyme Little Miss Muffet can be a tool to teach good writing, and more. This is a flashback episode originally published August 23, 2023. First, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim, and this is Deconstructing Comics.
It's Koom for Deconstructing Comics. I've got the pleasure of speaking with Jim Shooter, who's going to be at the Fan Expo Canada in about a week and a half. Nice to meet you, Jim.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Thanks. I've been watching some of your old interviews and reading. Certainly, your tenure at Marvel was when I was a kid, so like a lot of other interviewers, I have a lot of nostalgia for that period. I know that there's a lot of discussion and debate about the various disagreements and so on. So I thought I'd just skip that, and I'd ask you more general questions about your feelings about comics and looking back on your time as somebody who's been in the thick of things, if that's okay.
That's all right with me, because a lot of the disagreements are fictional and written by writers trying to sell books who weren't there and don't know.
No, fair enough. And I don't think at this point people are really going to get at any kind of...
I don't really care.
Yeah. So I noticed on your blog that you seem to be doing a kind of a tour, a Secret Wars tour with Mike Zeck and John Beatty, and a lot of your posts seem to be around 2016. So what's kind of brought you back to cons this year?
Oh, I've been going to cons ever since. What started me again. I didn't have any reason to go to conventions for years because I was just a freelance writer. I didn't really have anything to promote. And after I left Broadway, I didn't really have any reason to go. I mean, other than it was fun, but you'd lose a couple days' work, and it just didn't do it. Then I got talked into it by someone who said that they wanted to organize the reunion tour. I didn't want to do that either. But they told me that, it'd be good for Mike and John if there's the three of us together. And I hadn't seen those guys for a long time. So I went to one. It was fun. They paid me. So we did a lot of them that year, but I just kept getting invitations. And so I got in the habit of going to them, and I really enjoy them. It's so great seeing all the stuff that goes on and meeting everybody.
Are you doing anything in conjunction with the new Secret Wars project that Marvel is involved in? Which I frankly don't know anything about, but I've seen.
Which project?
They're doing some kind of Secret Wars.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not involved in it at all, except that I did the original one. They got me to sign papers and releases so that they'd have a clean chain of title, which I was happy to do because, I was the editor-in-chief of Marvel. How can I say, oh, I didn't know it was work for hire? I mean,
right.
I'm not going to lie about it. So I cleared the way for it. I actually knew about this movie about 3 years before anybody else did. But I don't know if it's going to have anything to do with what I wrote, or it's going to be the 2015 iteration that they did. And I just hope they do a good job. I really hope it rocks.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the movie, but the comics are releasing some new thing, and I think the Beyonders involved. That's about all I can gather.
Well, that's good.
I do have an odd question related to the Beyonder. I'm a big fan of David Mazzucchelli, and I have an odd page of his from the issue, which was a crossover with Secret Wars 2. And, I bought it on some online auction. And it wasn't until I got it that I noticed that the Beyonder was pasted on. And then I remembered that when Mazzucchelli's agent sold the pages from that book, all of the pages with the Beyonder were pasted on. So I did a little kind of hunting online, and somebody had a page that had been rejected, which the Beyonder had not been redone on. And he looks very different. He didn't have the disco jumpsuit. He had a different kind of, it's sort of a Jim Starlin-esque costume, and he had a shaved head, kind of looked a little bit like Eminem. And I was just wondering, did you originally have that design for the Beyonder? What caused you to change it?
Well, Al Milgram designed it, and the Beyonder, when he came to Earth, he was advised by a bag lady who they were looking in a store window, and she said, "Well, I like that," and so he didn't know, so he just wore the old style jumpsuit, and I mean, and also he really didn't care, It's like
Sure.
it's like you're more or less omnipotent. You just do what you want,
You don't remember
So,
why you changed the look or the costume?
well, I think the look over the years has changed. It wasn't changed while I was there, but other people develop the character and then move it forward. That's fine. That's their job.
No, this happened when you were there. It happened in the.
Oh, the Mazzucchelli issue definitely happened when I was there. I don't know why he drew something different than the on model.
Okay.
But they probably they just pasted it up to make it match all the other books.
Okay, interesting. Because I had the feeling that was drawn first, and then later somebody, maybe you, made the decision to give him the jumpsuit.
I don't even remember being involved in that decision. I would probably have just been the editor who decided, oh, this isn't right. I got to have this changed. And I think probably the book was late enough so that it was easier to just get it done in the office.
Sure. What are you working on now? Freelance?
Yeah, I go to a lot of conventions, and I do a lot of writing too in between. I'm working on a project for Netflix now, and can't talk about it, but they're keeping me real busy. So anyway, that's I keep my hand in.
What do you think of what's happened to Marvel Comics specifically, but the comics in general, mainstream comics in general, since your time?
Well, I mean, they went through a couple phases there, and right now they're in a phase where I don't think they remember what business they're in. It's guys, it's entertainment. See, it's like there's a lot of I don't know, sort of self-indulgent stuff going on, and preaching, and DC leads the league in cheesecake. I think they've gone astray here, and a lot of it's like social justice stuff, and that's fine. But Stan did it the right way. When he introduced the Black Panther, it wasn't about race. It was about a hero from Africa.
Sure.
It was about a man, and he didn't have to preach. The story spoke for itself.
Sure.
And that's how to do it, and that's how I do it, or try to do it. And I think that when you feel like it's either the writer who's talking at you, lecturing you, or it's the company that's trying to present their corporate opinion. I don't care if you agree with every word. No one wants a lecture. No one wants it becomes propaganda, and it's not helping. And so the thing is, like, well, guys, do it the right way. Get better writers. Get somebody who knows how to send a message in a way that it's a character talking, not you, not the company. Just like Stan did it, just like Mark Twain did it, just like anybody who knows what he's doing does.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I have such fondness for your era of Marvel Comics was because there was a consistency you could buy into in terms of character and storyline, or even in terms of title. And of course, there hadn't been a break in continuity since the inception, so that helped a lot too. There was a feeling of longevity. Now it seems very gimmicky. It seems very tied to movie releases or TV or to fads. It seems like the tail wagging the dog to me, which makes it very hard for me to read and get behind it.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's anyone there who says no. I think that anybody kind of does anything they want. And so I people think I was like the big meanie, and I was always micromanaging and saying no and stuff. Nah, I had the greatest editors in the world. I had Archie Goodwin, the best of all time. I had Louise Simonson. It's like better than Christmas. I had Larry Hama. It's like winning the lottery. And Carl Potts and Bob Budiansky and Jim Salakup and lots of other people. And they were really good at what they did. And they didn't really need a lot of help from me. I mean, I just sort of conducted the orchestra, tried to coordinate things. Now, with the new guys, I trained them. I mean, that's different with somebody who was sort of brand new to it. But I mean, all right, let's take Louise Simonson. She trained Ann Nocenti and didn't need any training after that. Louise trained you, you know what you're doing. And so it was really not me so much. It's like we all were on the same page. We all understood it's entertainment first. We all understood tell a good story, tell it well. And you don't have to tell that to Larry. I mean, he knows. So
I did interview Anne once, and if I remember correctly, I think she said she didn't have any trouble with you. She had a pretty good experience learning from you, is what I remember.
Well, I mean, Anne started out as my secretary. She applied for the job as secretary, and I hired her. And she was not a good secretary. She was pretty bad at it, actually. And I said, Anne, I thought you knew this stuff, And she said, well, I just wanted to get in the door. What I actually want to do is be a writer. I said, okay, show me something you've written. And she said, I don't have anything appropriate. I said, all right. And we have a wall with all the covers on it. I said, pick a character, any character, write me a story. And so she came in a day or two later with this. She picked Smurfs. We were publishing Smurfs at the time. And she picked Smurfs. And so I read it, and it was wonderful. It was brilliant. And so I took it down the hall to Louise, because Louise, I think her assistant had gotten promoted or something. So she was looking for a new assistant. And I gave her the story. Anne didn't have her name on it. And Louise read it and said, this is really good. And I said, yeah, that's Ann Nocenti wrote that. And she said, Ann? And I said, yeah, I hear you're looking for a new assistant. I said, well, you might want to consider Ann. She said, oh, no, I would never steal your secretary. I said, steal her. Go ahead, steal her, And she did. And then, she found her niche there and was genius. I mean, it was great. There's one smart lady.
Yeah, I mean, part of what's great about that time is this sense of mythology about working there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But some of these wonderful stories. Do you have
less ugly than people tell you?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I could have taken the stress and the factions and whatnot, but I would have liked.
There were no factions.
Well, you talked.
That is all baloney. That's writers who weren't there making up a story to try to sell more books. They take a bunch of events and they string it together into a conspiracy theory. Talk to Larry. Talk to Ann. Talk to Louise. It wasn't like that at all. It was never like. It was like that before I got there, but not so much. So much after.
Do you have any interesting stories about Miller and Jansen's run on Daredevil and Mackenzie and Denny O'Neil?
Yeah, there's some of that is a little dicey, but anyway, Frank Miller showed up. I think he was 19 years old. He came from Vermont, and he had come to the city before showing samples and got just a bad treatment by a few people. But he made more samples and he came back again. And at first he got the same thing. Neil Adams told him he'd never be good enough to work in the business. This time he went to got a second opinion and went to see Joe Orlando at DC. And Joe Orlando just ripped him apart and told him he'd never work in the business. Vince Coletta was the art director there at the time. And Vince saw him, I guess, in the hall. And I guess Frank looked really sad. And Vince said, what's wrong? And he said, well, Joe Orlando doesn't like my stuff. And Ben said, well, I'm the art director. Let me see it. And so he looked at it. He said, the art is rough, but I like the thinking. And so he went, and the only job he could find for Frank was a one-page feature page for one of the war comics that Kanigher did. He said, here, at least this will pay your train fare. So anyway, now he has a job. And he's decides, all right, goes across town to Wally Green over at Whitman Gold Key. Wally gives him a 7-page wheelie in the chopper bunch job. Now he's got 2 jobs. So then he comes to see the scariest guy of all, me. And my comment was the same as I found out later what Vince told him, which was, drawing's a little rough, but I like some of the thinking here. It's really good. So I told him what I wanted to do. I said, you're in boot camp. You just, tell a story, tell it clearly. And I showed him what to do. And I said, I'll have to see layouts because your layouts are, weird. And so he had to go to Vermont and get on a train, come back to show me the layouts. And they were pretty good. I mean, he listened to what I said. And then on the way home, he stopped at Neil's studio to kind of brag that he got a job. And Neil looked at his layouts. And Neil didn't know it was me because Neil and I were buddies. And he would never have done this if he knew that I was the editor. So he told Frank, oh, just do it your own way. The editors are idiots, And so when Frank brought the finished job in, I mean, he butchered it. It was terrible. And I just said, well, I'll pay you for this, but I can't use you. Why not? Well, you didn't do what I told you. And he, regretted that. And he said, later I found out about Neil, he said, give me another chance. And I did because the thinking was so good on that first batch of stuff. And then that time he did what I said, and it was good. And before you know it, he's doing Team Up. And the next thing you know, Denny O'Neil needs an artist for Daredevil. He's working with Roger McKenzie. That didn't go so well. I mean, it went pretty good for a while. But Frank was learning a lot about writing, and he had a whole different idea about what Daredevil should be. And he and Roger were just not simpatico. And so Frank, he was starting to feel his oats, I guess. And he told Denny, it's him or me. So Denny came to me and says, what do I do? And I said, the guy who gives the ultimatum is the one who goes. So go say goodbye to Frank, right? And so Denny goes in there and tells him that. And Frank withdrew his ultimatum. But gossip gets around. Poor Roger hears about that. And he quit Daredevil, not the company, just quit Daredevil. He had plenty of work. And so then Frank wrote a story. Denny showed it to me. It was great. It was the first Elektra story. And so he started writing it too. And then, he just kept getting better and better. And then he got David Mazzucchelli, who's a brilliant artist. And and they together, they were telling a good story and telling it really well. And Daredevil went from almost canceled to our number 2 book in the space of, 6 months.
Yeah, my feeling was always when I read those Mazzucchelli issues that Frank wanted to do another long run like he'd done with Jansen. But because the second story he proposed, called The Devil's Own, which he was going to have Walt Simonson draw, never ended up flying off the ground. He then ended up being sucked into DC. So that would have been a very different trajectory.
Nothing like that.
No.
Nothing like that happened. What happened was, as Frank started to really take off and was becoming very popular, anybody who was popular at Marvel was courted by Jeanette Kahn or other people at DC. And Frank and Walt and Jim Starlin came to me and they said they wanted to do creator-owned comics. I said, okay, we can do that. I had previously offered a deal like that to Sergio Aragonis, but he decided to go with Pacific Comics instead. So I was, yeah, we're ready to go. And so Frank was going to do, I think, some version of Ronin, but it was a continuing series. Walt was going to do Star Slammers, and Jim Starlin was going to do Dreadstar. Walt started realizing what a grind that would be, and I think he did Star Slammers as a graphic novel instead, creator owned. And Starlin did the first epic comic, Dreadstar. But at that time, like I said, Jeanette Kahn was after him pretty hard, and so one day he comes in and says, "Can we go to lunch?" We go to lunch, talk about nothing. He says, "Can we take a walk?" I said, "Okay, take a walk." And finally, he tells me that he got this big offer from Jeanette Kahn, and he didn't want to leave, but he wanted to try it. And I said, "Go." I said, find out you don't like it and then come back.
Yeah.
So, and that's exactly what happened. He got a kind of a rotten deal. They reneged on a lot of the stuff they promised him for Ronin. And he came back and he started working for us again. He did that brilliant series with Bill Sienkiewicz, Elektra Assassin,
Sure.
Epic Comics series. Now that couldn't be created on because it had Marvel characters in it. But guess what? They got paid really well. So they were happy to do it. Anyway, go ahead.
So I read that one of your favorite tools, two of your favorite tools to teach people how to storytell was the FF story by Kirby with the Human Torch, which we can't really show, but also I read you like to use Little Miss Muffet. Do you remember how you used Little Miss Muffet?
Yes. Well, the Kirby book, first of all, it was a reprint of a Strange Tales issue, Strange Tales 103, reprinted in Captain America 216. The reason I used that is because it was a reprint and it was cheap. You could go out and buy one, And so I just walked people through the story. I didn't tell him to draw like Kirby. I didn't even tell him to tell a story like Kirby. I just said, this is what he's thinking, and this is how he's getting his points across. And that's your job. Get your points across. You've got to convey the information. You've got to do it clearly, succinctly, and, do it your own way. But this is what you're trying to accomplish. And so I went and walked through that with young artists. I also did it for writers, too, because the writers and artists, they both need to know. It's a visual medium. They both got to be on the same page. Little Miss Muffet is a simple nursery rhyme, but it helps you remember the pillars of a story. Okay, Little Miss Muffet sat on top of eating her curds and whey. All right, who's our person? It's Little Miss Muffet. What's she doing? She's eating lunch. Along came a spider. Well, that's going to screw up lunch, Now there's a tension building there. Sat down beside her. You don't know what's going to happen. She sees it and runs away. Okay. Sees it is the climax and runs away is the conclusion. So if you can remember that you have to introduce the characters and establish the status quo, that something has to disrupt the status quo to send your character on a journey. And then at some point there will be forces in conflict and there's a climax where somebody wins or the conflict is otherwise resolved. And then they're in a new situation that's different than their original situation. That is Aristotle talking. That ain't me. That is fundamental. A story has a definition, just like a sentence has a definition. The fact that a sentence is a complete thought didn't inhibit Hemingway, J.K. Rowling, Shakespeare, or anybody else. It's just a definition, and the varieties are infinite. Life has a definition, but the varieties are infinite. So the same thing with story. It's a journey. Okay, you have to start somewhere, and you're going to get somewhere. There's endless possibilities to that, and you don't have to do it in order. I mean, Miller just showing off once after he got his feet under him. He introduced the character at the end of the story, just showing off. And you could do it any which way. It's just you better get it done so that people can understand the story. You tell it well, and that's of course very basic stuff. There's a million other things. There's subplots. There's supporting cast. There could be a slow arriving spider. There could be multiple spiders. There could be twists in the middle, like Rocky, for instance. The movie Rocky. It starts out being about a fight, and then he realizes he can't win. And what's at stake here is his manhood, his personhood. And so it becomes about a fighter.
Right. Would you say that you're still working creatively now, like with Netflix and so on, would you say in 50, 60 years, your ideas about writing and storytelling have basically stayed the same?
It's stayed the same for the last 40,000 years. I expect it to stay the same for the next 40,000 years. Sure. It's built into your mind. We can't escape it. If you think in a Western language, especially a Romance language, the syntax, that is the logic of your language, is, all right, forgive me, linguists, I'm going to simplify this, cause and effect. Like who and what, how to come out. And that's the basis of our language. It's you'll find it in every level. Joe went to the store. Well, here's Joe, presumably not at the store, went, that's what he did, to the store. Now he's at the store, complete journey. And, of course, at each level you go up when you get to story, especially when you get to literature, like I say, it's endless. There's so many journeys in a human condition that you can always bring something new to it. It's not a formula. It's just a definition.
My last question to you would be, I was reading about your early life and how you got a scholarship to NYU and had to leave that, which was really heartbreaking. If you could go back and if you could continue college, would you do anything differently? Would you become a businessman instead? Would you become a scientist?
Well, I was doing what I loved, and that's one of the reasons I didn't go to college, was because I already had a job that was, I was 11. And, I think if the only other thing I might have been is a scientist, because when I was young in middle school, high school, I was a big science guy. I took 6 years of science and 4 years of high school. I took every math class they offered, all the way up to algebra or calculus, probability, and statistics. I had a special after school science class called biology research. I really thought that's what I was going to do. And at first, I loved comics, but the comics were just a way to make money and keep my family alive until I could get where I wanted to go. Like I said, at the end there, I realized I'm already doing what I love. So I stuck with it. And it actually, look, there were lots of ups and downs. I'll grant you, the DC was a problem in some ways. Marvel was a nightmare. When I got there, we fixed it and it was really good for a while. Then evil bankers decided to sell it and everything kind of fell down again. But all in all, it wasn't a bad ride. It really wasn't a bad. And I'm still doing it. I'm just not. I'm actually writing a comic book with a guy I know. It's for a company called Highburn Publishing, and like the guy, he's got his head in the right place, and so we're gonna do it. So I'm just doing it for fun, but I'll have a comic book out there soon.
That's great, Jim. Thanks so much. This has been a real pleasure. Honestly.
My pleasure.
This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. Pledge $2 a month or more and get Batman 66 podcast Bat Bits, where we've recently gone over an early draft of Rick Vollard's script for As the Bookworm Turns, and we'll be digging into a variety of documents from the files of William Dozier, producer of Batman and the Green Hornet, including his correspondence with Bruce Lee and more Season 1 Batman scripts. At $4 a month, you also get our monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I'm moving through the book Batman in the 50s issue by issue with a rotating second chair of Paul, Emmett, Patrick, or Kumar. Follow our Patreon for free and you can hear the first 2 episodes of both Bat Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. On Facebook, we have both a page and a group. Those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com, as is our YouTube channel, where our episodes are posted every week as videos of a single image. You can comment on our episodes on YouTube or on our site, or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, it's the return of Critiquing Comics, where we discuss 2 comics submitted by their creators. After that, I'm going to be traveling, and while I'm away, we'll be presenting my talks with Mulele about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, as presented on Patreon in 2020. So, till next week, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.